My name's Droptimal, and I have not posted a tech video in a millennia, and I finally came out of the shadows because I have found something really cool I want to share today. Hopefully you saw the little demo before this, and we're going to go over how to do all that using a pad. And if you've seen the clickbait thumbnail, we're going to show you how this compares to Hitbox, including the Daigobox, infamous Hitbox SOCD setting that was banned in Street Fighter V. We're going to bring that out and see how this compares to it. But yeah, in the video you see me doing some crazy things. There's a dpad and analog action going on, and if you run over and grab your pad right now, it's probably not going to work the same. So in this video, we're going to cover a few things: how to do these moves, how to set up your pad to do these moves. If you are not allowed to set it up in the way I'm about to show, it's an incentive to mod your pad for this. I've been sitting on this tech since Street Fighter V, but things have kind of come a long way, and so that's why I finally decided to do a video. I'm going to come out boldly and say that if you are a pad player, it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or if you're trying to win the Capcom Cup, this is ideal that you probably should pick this up right now. There's something to improve at some point in your game, even if you don't use all the things I'm going to show you. Simply the dash alone I'm going to show you, that's something anyone can use regardless of which character. It's just superior to your normal types of dashing. So first, let's get into how to do this. Okay, so how do we set this up? I'm just going to do a guide that goes over how to set it up for PC. There's definitely a way to do it for PS5. It'll be outside the game. Xbox likely has one. But let's just get PC going just to kind of do a proof of concept. So we're going to hit this controller over here, and I'm going to enable Steam input. This way, it's going to default to the way we set up our controller, not the way the game is going to read whatever controller we plug in. So then we go to Edit Layout, go to Joysticks, hit the cog. We can now change if it's a left or a right joystick. So I'm going to set my right to my left and my left to my right. And if everything works out, we should be able to use it inside the game now. Okay, so now that you swapped your analogs, you got Guile moving around with this, but you can also move around this. How are we doing all that crazy tech in the teaser? Let's go over the first one that you want, how to do those sonic booms. So the first way we're going to show this is going to be the Street Fighter V method. I'm going to post a video right here so you can watch me doing it there. So in that video, you can see that I'm holding back and I'm flicking forward and doing it with this over here because I hadn't figured out the remapping yet. But it's a lot easier because I would get forward if I do this, and here I get neutral. And I don't want that for this technique. We're going to use it for other ones. So what am I doing here? I'm holding back, getting my charge. The second I let go, I'm going to hit forward. And I'm going to slip off, and the second I slip off, I'm going to repress, and I have a punch map up here. It just comes right out. Can I do this from crouching? Yep. Can I do this in a flash kick? I kick up here. And you'll notice this is a lot faster than sliding back like that. Like, you have a lot of things that can go wrong in this input, starting with accidentally hitting jump. Because when I try this, I constantly get a jump by mistake trying to throw a sonic boom. I don't have that problem with this. It just comes right out. But The other thing to go over is the directional switch. So the problem and the debate with the hitbox, which is why it's underneath right now, is the neutral. If I go from left to right on a stick, they say that you can't do it without hitting a neutral. You can. You have to be extremely quick, and it's not really feasible. On this, though, we're not going to get it with everyone, but you will see it happen right there. We have a back to a forward to a back. Now, that forward is 4 frames. Normally, we can get that shorter. So, yeah, there was a 1 frame forward, 2 frame. We're not quite getting that perfect hitbox 1 frame forward, but we're getting pretty close. It's definitely a huge upgrade than this or what you do on the stick. So right now, we're going to show you what you can do with that neutral. All right, so now that we've gone over the sonic boom, and we're going to cover more about it later, let's go over what you can do with using that neutral. And this is tech that is exclusive to Street Fighter 6 compared to 5. In 5, I won't get neutral SOCDs. But when people talk about what is really broken with the hitbox, a lot of time they get hung up on the last input. They feel it's more fair, and I don't think they understand how different neutral operates compared to other controllers. So yeah, we might save a few frames on charge motions, but we get whole new ways to input things off of neutral. And the simplest one, and I'm going to show it on a hitbox real quick, is if I want to dash, I can tap, and that's okay. You're getting 4s, you're getting 5s on some of those neutral presses because you know we don't operate in 1 frame that fast. We can do this though. That is a perfect dash right there. There's 1 frame neutral before the next forward, and there's 1 frame on the forward. That is the fastest you can input a dash, and that is because neutral advantage. We save about 2 to 4 frames. So, 1 to 2 frames on your sonic booms and whatnot, your dashes are much better. And dash is okay in Street Fighter. You're normally not dashing forward and trying to get a punish. What you're trying to do is parry into drive rush. So let's get into that. Let's see dashing on our pad here, and let's do it the SOCD way, which is hold forward and flick. Okay. And there it goes. And it's pretty quick. We're still getting like 3 frames neutral, but it's 1 frame forward. It's a huge improvement. So there's 3 frames total. Let's see if we can get the 1 frame. There we go. So we got 1 frame forward, 1 frame neutral, and I did that by actually flicking upwards. Instead of this, I went bam, like that. Bam, 1 frame. So you can get it really tight. And if we want to drive rush, there you go. So I have a parry mapped up here. And this is ideal because when you do a drive rush, the easiest way to do it is to hold, parry, and double tap. The problem is, notice it's eating into that second bar of meter. We don't want that. That might cause us to go in burnout, just burn meter that we want anyways. We want to see exactly 1 bar used. And the way you do that is tap forward first, then hit parry. And you can do it like this. It's feasible. I don't like it. When I'm in a panic and I really want to punish someone, I'm likely to mess this input up or just not have it come out. And then I do this terrible thing where I dash forward and I'm unsafe. This, very well. So this is the first piece of SOCD tech. I'm going to go into the next one, which gets a little cooler. All right, so let's get into my favorite SOCD tech piece, the SOCD SRK. This is a thing I've been doing for a long time. I thought it was a gimmick. I made a video on it, and this is the only way I do SRKs. And I tell all hitboxers, don't do SRKs the way you're doing them. Do it like this. It's like the wrong button. So what it is it looks like this. I do one motion and an SRK came flying out. And what most people do is they hit forward, they hit down forward. Too slow. You're getting 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s in the inputs. That's comparable to what sticks and pads are doing. We're getting 1s and 2s. We're way faster. So that right there, that is a perfect SRK motion in 3 frames. And the benefit of it, I can walk with it. Faster, I can get you out of the air. It is spammable as long as I land on that down forward. I can go as fast as I want. Down forward. If I slip off the down forward, I can option all sorts of cool stuff you can do with this. So let's kind of break down what's happening. So if you're a hitbox player, this is a mini tutorial for you. We're going to show the pad in a second. So you're going to hit forward, then you're going to hit down and back. When you do this, because of SOCD neutral, these are being canceled. So you're only getting a down. Then you're going to let go of the back. So forward, down, down forward. We have an SRK. If you're playing something like Sea Viper, you can let go of this and hit up. And that gives you your perfect motion for a size mode. You spin. Obviously, it's not coming out over you, but you're a Sea Viper player, awesome tech. So, yeah, let's show how to do that on a pad. So, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hit forward. Now, we're going to hit down, back. So, we don't have 2 buttons here. We're just going to hit down, back, and you'll notice a down comes out. So, forward, down, back equals down. And keep holding the forward. We're going to tilt down. And because we're holding down and we're holding forward, we get a down forward. So, the motion is forward, down, forward, flick. And we get SRKs that way. They're not as quick, but this is still fairly quick. Let's get on the right side. And it comes right out. Can I do a walking? Sure enough. And if you want to get super fast with things, you know, I'm not sure if you can do the upward flick if you want, but yes, you can get 1 frames. It's really hard. It's probably a frame or 2 slower. Pretty sure, I don't have the Sea Viper loaded up. I'm going to give that a shot later, so if there's more video, you know it worked. We're going to see if we can do Seismo spam. But yeah, so this is, I think, a superior way to do SRKs. It's just way quicker. You jump in the air, and I see you, bam, you're gone. I don't have to do this awkward twitch where you see me ducking and flinching. It just comes right out. A little early on the button there. Yeah, super simple. And you can apply this to other weird techniques. I'm sure KOF has some weird techniques that you can kind of take this principle and channel it over. But now that we covered that, let's take this one step further and work on crosscuts. Okay, so now that we got our SRKs, let's take them a little bit further and do crosscuts. So a crosscut is basically when an opponent jumps over you and crosses you up. Sometimes it can mess up your inputs, or you'll do it too early and you'll just miss them. So show this in effect now. There we go. So I did it too early. Trying to beat them in the air. They're too close. It's not going to work. You want to hit them when they're right about to land, just on the other side of you, about that height. So you got to wait till they move just past you. And what you're going to do is you're going to buffer the move and then wait right as they pass you. Then you hit the punch. And that should turn you around. So it looks like this. I'm doing it the normal way. There we go. So that's a crosscut, but if I'm on pad, I'm not sure I trust that. That's kind of hard to do. There's a lot that can go wrong. I could get blown up and full comboed for that if that doesn't work. So we're gonna do a little input to make it a little bit more lenient. So we have our new SRK with the flick. That's not gonna quite fix the situation. You can do it. really hard, you might not get it. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit forward, flick, and then hit down back. That down back is going to be right about the moment they pass over, and I'm going to hit the button then. And that's going to help kind of double up your motions to be a little bit more lenient for this. There you go. So it's still going to take a lot of practice. You're not going to get this day one and start doing it in matches, but it's certainly a lot more reasonable. So that is the crosscut. So now let's get into the history of all this tech. Is it legal? Is it fair? Should you be doing this? We're going to talk about the Daigobox, and then we're going to have a competition between the two. Kind of showcase a lot of what people feel and what the reality of these things are. Okay, so now that we've gone over some of these techniques, hopefully the comments section is exploding right now. People are like, oh, that's broken, or it's not the same as Hitbox. And it's not. There are some differences, and we're going to be out with it. Last input Hitbox is a smidge better, but not as good as you think it is. But in Street Fighter V, that wasn't the case. And that's where the controversy comes from, and that's the Scourge of Capcom, the Daigobox. And I have here a very special kind of hitbox. I can change the SOCDs to whatever I want. So normally I have my left-right neutral, and I make a small change here. Instead of up dominant, I do last input. Honestly, I feel this should be the standard. It doesn't often affect much, but if you're doing air fireballs and you want to start with a jump, it's a lot better. If you're doing tri-dash as a marble, it's just better. So if you don't have a reason to hold back, that's my little tip for you hitboxers. But let's get into this, because this is where people complain, is that instant left, right, there are no neutrals, they are never happening. If I want to throw fireballs, that's all I got. And people are like, that is just not fair. Now, on our pad, we're almost matching that, but we can get 1 frames off this thing. If I hit the lip right here, you will see that 1 frame forward count. And if I get really good with my other hand, sometimes I can sync them up and get the perfect 1 frame. It's actually hard to do. The 1 frame here is easy. Getting it with the hit is hard, because you have to press this button usually when you're letting go. Timing with a negative edge is hard. That said, it is possible. It's definitely more possible than other devices. So when this happened, there was an uproar, and Capcom stepped up and shut it down and made new rules that you had to do SOCD neutral or simultaneous. And if you remember in that Street Fighter V pad footage, it didn't affect anything. And the reason is that you could take your hitbox, set it to simultaneous, and because forward dominant, which is a last input in one direction, up dominant, last input in one direction, all special moves for charge characters in these games only end in forward and up. So you could change it to simultaneous, go back to Guile, and you were back to doing this. You didn't have to have last input, you needed simultaneous input, because forward dominant allowed you to just do this again. So nothing changed. Everyone cheered and was like, death to the cheat box. And neither those players nor Capcom went to training mode and checked if they had stopped anything. So by their own rules, nothing was fixed. Take that back further, and we get into the origin of SOCD debates, which is Vanilla Marvel. So in Vanilla Marvel, the hitbox had simultaneous. It was simultaneous and up dominant. And in that game, they had no in-game SOCDs. And it would allow you to block left and right if you held this. So all you had to do was block up and down. You could not be crossed up in Marvel, which is atrociously unfair. So the hitbox went and changed these to be neutral, and that's where that came from. The problem is no one picked up a pad, because you in Vanilla Marvel could also block in both directions. So if you were playing and you didn't know about the swap, I don't know if it was available back then, you could play, and if you saw something funny, like you were just incoming with 0, you could do this. And the second was over, you just go back to your normal grip. But for a moment, you could choose to do this. It's super awkward, but if you have a modded controller, yeah, you could have just done this in Marvel and gone about your day. This would have been extremely overpowered if someone picked up on it. In Ultimate, they have changed that. So if you try it in Ultimate, it's not going to work. They do have an SOCD in-game. You can no longer block in both directions. But there's a complicated history of people raging about the hitbox and not understanding the pad had all that tech the entire time. And, well, now we're at modern controls. And a lot of the debates I've had to have, there's been a lot of gray area. But now in modern controls, we can do anything with one button. And the fear is that if we can just throw fireballs that easily, are these fair? And people are saying, well, the inputs are unfair. Well, the move is unfair. If you're allowed to optimally perform those moves, the move needs to be fixed. And so modern controls recognize this. Modern controls made moves so easy, they had to do something. And what they do is they lower the damage because the move needs to be adjusted. So, you know, if Capcom is listening, the way you fix this is quite simple. You simply put a cooldown on the charge of charge moves so that you cannot instantly recharge these. It's a very simple line of code. It's just a variable. It just checks if it's true or false, still charging cooldown or not. And from there, we can't be lightning quick and everyone's on the same level. Hitbox doesn't have advantage, pad doesn't have advantage, because right now we're looking at stick is the worst option, and the debate is more between these two. And I don't know which is better. Ergonomically, I'm always going to side with the hitbox, but if I'm thinking of everything that can possibly be milked out of a device, this is busted. There's a lot of things you can do with this once you're comfortable using a pad. And the really only big disadvantage after the ergonomics is face buttons and shoulders versus full access. So now I've said all these things, let's actually show it, because you're probably still thinking the Daigobox is more busted than what we got going on here. Okay, so now that we've lit the comment section on fire with all that things I said, let's compare the two. Let's actually put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to compare the Daigobox to all the new tech we've been doing on this pad. And I'm going to tell you out the gate, in our first test, this is going to be better. This is going to do all the broken things you think it does. But then we're going to put reality onto it. And I'm going to make a wager the pad may be ever so slightly better than this. So, we have already gone over, these are very easy. Getting a true one frame switch and back is pretty hard. You have to hit the lip and you have to hit the button right as you get the negative. It's very hard to get that super perfect one. I have one right there. But, you know, I'm still getting 2s, 3s, and 4s. I'm really struggling to get that perfect one. It's hard to do. I'm normally going to be doing it like this. It's super easy, but those are not frame perfect sonic booms. That's not the reality of that. You're always going to have a frame or two, so that neutral frame we're talking about isn't really that big a factor when we think about it. But still, theoretically, if you master it, this is the best. So let's take a look at a few of those frames. Charging off. So there's your idea of frames for the Daigobox. So we're going to switch over to our pad. And we're going to take a look at some of those frames. And if you look at them, they're pretty decent. They're not absolutely perfect, but they're comparable. They're pretty much in the same ballpark. Maybe a frame or two here and there, a little bit slower, but I think you're keeping pace. The problem is, we don't play Guile like this. We don't just back up and throw fireballs. Sonic booms. Guile does this. And that's because Guile also wants to be able to flash kick. So he wants to sit here, down back. If you move in, if you do something silly, he's going to punish you. If he has an opportunity to pressure, he's going to throw a Sonic Boom, try to mix you, or just stay down back. He's probably not going to be walking backwards. Now, there are some cases with some combos where you're going to be doing Sonic Boom into Sonic Boom. That may be an edge case. But let's compare the frames of how we normally play Guile. And we don't have to change our technique. We're getting a lot of similar looking frames to when we were doing this. Now let's go over to the Daigobox. And I'm going to show you kind of a weird situation with how the game checks inputs. So if I hold down back and I do the Daigo Sonic Boom, well, it's not coming out now. I have my cheater box not getting a neutral, but we don't have a forward happening. And we can have down back to forward. That can get a Sonic Boom. But we can't go down back, down forward. That will not get a Sonic Boom. You have to hit this cardinal direction. So what we have to do is we have to let go of the back, or let go of the down while holding back, and then hit this. No longer can we realistically hit that one frame because we have to let go and immediately press in one smooth motion and get the fireball. This is really hard. My nail's clipping on the edge of that. Your hands don't want to do this. This is easy. This is really hard. And you're no longer getting that realistic fireball. In fact, I can't do this. I have to do this. And we get tight. It's still pretty good. You know, you can get a one frame, but it's really, really hard. And you definitely probably don't get it with that immediate charge. This is hard. And I would say, you know, the frames are okay. It's still going to be good. But you're noticing I'm struggling a lot to make these super fast and consistent. And if we go back to this, I think the frames we were getting on this, I think they're actually probably a little bit better. I'm definitely doing this a lot easier. I'm not a pad player. I'm playing on this thing for a decade. So think about that when this is a completely legal device, it's following all CPT rules, and this one is banned. So right now, if we're talking about the peripheral race and who's winning, who's losing, the stick is way behind these two, whereas these two are having pros and cons between each other. If we're talking about all the tech in the world, if you can master the weirdness of this, the restriction of face buttons to shoulders, this can do more than this. So there's a bit of a trade-off, especially with the access to buttons, but if we're talking ergonomics, this is probably the best. If you're talking what is theoretically possible, this is the superior device over the Daigobox or any other SOCD setting you would choose, because you might go neutral's busted, only last input. And I actually believe last input all directions is the fairest one, even though people think it's the more broken one, the gains you get are so much smaller than you get off of SOCD SRKs. Because this thing's doing SOCD SRKs and dashes. You know, that's nuts to be able to just do that. And I get the Daigo fire or sonic booms. I'm getting everything from this. Okay, so that's my little controversial tech video. You can see why I put the tech at front before I got to the hot takes, but I hope this helps spread some understanding, kind of about the SOCD conflict with Hitbox. I know there's a lot of passionate opinions. I don't feel a lot of those come from a place of understanding, and understanding it happens in the lab. And you know, that's how I found out about things like this. Is how I came up with the SOCD SRKs. A lot of people just see one thing and they don't think about the application, and they don't really think about what other things can do. This technology has been here the whole time in front of us, and we've only seen a handful of people ever do it, but they've never taken it to this extent. And I'm hoping we start seeing this pop up, or you know, maybe this opens up a whole new dialogue on what gets banned. Do we ban the dual analog pads as it takes over tournaments and becomes the new enemy here? There's a lot to go with, but there's also a lot of hope if it works out. Like, I hope this can open up freedom with SOCDs, because yeah, I do like having up, down, last input. It makes my Captain America much more consistent. He doesn't jump in the air and accidentally heavy kick when I'm trying to throw shields. My Doctor Doom gets to try dash and doesn't accidentally double dash up. My intent is a lot more mirrored to my inputs. If I'm holding back and I hit forward, well, I hit forward. I want forward above all things to happen. When I get neutral, that's when I'm getting the cheaty inputs, and yet that's what people feel was fair. So if that's fair, I don't see why this isn't more fair. I can't do anything that you can't do. I can just do it a little bit better. I can do things you can't do on a neutral. But yeah, I hope it opens up people trying this in other games. I would love to see what this looks like for Ivy's throw in Soul Calibur. Can Zangief's 720s be cheated by rotating both? There's a whole bunch of things to try. And I hope people get creative with it, and I see tech videos that blow my mind. But yeah, I don't know if I'll be making other videos, probably not on this topic unless it's needed. There might be a Marissa tech video in the future, but there's a balance patch coming, so I felt I should hold that off and give you this instead. If you stuck around, thank you, and maybe like, share, pass this around, start a war on Twitter or Reddit, what have you, and have fun in the lab.